All right. Well, first of all, thank you so much for logging into this session. And if this is your first session of the day, welcome to the 2022 Ohio Nutrition Incentive Network Annual Convening. We hope that you've enjoyed what you've seen so far today, and there is still time to register for our 4 p.m. happy hour reflection, which happens after the session at 4 o'clock. And I heard that there will be some kind of scavenger hunt at that session, so definitely join us, and it's a great networking opportunity as well. We'll go ahead and share that registration link in the chat, so you can sign up for that one if you'd like. We are beginning each session with a land acknowledgement statement, which we have sourced from the Ohio State University Office of Diversity and Inclusion. A land acknowledgement recognizes and respects the relationship that exists between Indigenous peoples and their ancestral and contemporary territories. So we acknowledge that the state of Ohio occupies the ancestral and contemporary territories of the Shawnee, Potawatomi, Delaware, Miami, Peoria, Seneca, Wyandot, Ojibwe, and Cherokee peoples. These lands were ceded in the 1795 Treaty of Greenville and the forced removal of tribes through the Indian Removal Act of 1830. We also invite everyone today to display your preferred pronouns in either your Zoom name, or if you'd like to share them in the chat box as well, you're welcome to. If today is your first session, just a little bit about the Ohio Nutrition Incentive Network, which is a multi-sector coalition working towards a shared vision of affordable access to healthy local foods and a healthy, equitable, and resilient Ohio food system. We represent diverse regions of Ohio and collaborate to advance nutrition incentive programming statewide. We will share a full contact list early next week of all Ohio Nutrition Incentive Network members, but we also are all using the Zoom background that I have up now. So definitely feel free to ask questions of those members or network a little bit to learn more about our work. If you're interested in joining the network, and we are looking to expand the network and diversify membership, definitely reach out to me. We'll put my email in the chat box and I can give you some more information about the coalition. In this session, we are going to learn about the role of Ohio's public markets and the role that they play in our urban communities. I'd like to acknowledge that one of Ohio's public markets is not joining us today due to a scheduling conflict, which is North Market in Columbus. And so we ask that you please visit North Market the next time that you're in the area. We've reserved time at the end of the session for question and answer, but my colleague Anna will be monitoring the chat as well. So if you have questions that come up throughout the session, feel free to pop them in there and then we'll answer them at the end. Public markets serve as an anchor in the urban food system. They provide a space for food businesses to thrive, connect urban and rural economies, and as we'll hear more about today, have a unique opportunity to bring the community into a vibrant and active urban space. I'd like to welcome our two presenters today, Morgan Taggart of the Fair Project and John Bird of Findlay Market. We are going to start by having Morgan and John each give us an overview of the public markets that they work with and highlight a few initiatives that speak to the strengths of their public markets. And then we'll move on into that question and answer session. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Morgan to kick us off.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's so good to be with you. Let me pull up my presentation here. Okay. How am I looking?
Looks great.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. It's so good to be with you all here today. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk a little bit about Cleveland's West Side Market. I'm representing Fair Food Access Raises Everyone. We are an organization that works on food access up here in Cleveland, Ohio. And before I start, I hope some of you have been able to make the trip to our West Side Market. As you can see from this photo, this is inside the market hall. It is a beautiful, gorgeous emporium of food. And so this is where a lot of our vendors, I'm going to be talking about both our produce arcade and our market hall, because they're two separate buildings, and just wanted to make sure you saw this beauty right here in front of you, because it's a very cool place. So a little bit more about us. So I work for FAIR, Food Access Raises Everyone, and we do a lot of different types of projects and initiatives here in the Cleveland area. We use a very community participatory approach and an equity lens to a lot of the work we do around food systems and food justice. We're also really, I think, cognizant of how healthy food access connects with other social determinants of health in our work, how it connects to housing and poverty and access to quality education and good paying jobs. And food is just one of the kind of the many projects that we work on across the city. When it comes to the West Side Market, we were one of the members of the local lead for the consultant team that worked with the city of Cleveland back in 2021 to develop an operational roadmap for the city of Cleveland to help the West Side Market move forward. Since that time, we have been a programmatic partner of the West Side Market. So I just wanted to kind of make sure I'm not here on behalf of, I don't manage the West Side Market, but we are one of their key partners on some of this work, which I'll share more about. So just a little snapshot of history when it comes to the West Side Market. We are actually coming up on our 110th birthday. Just a couple weeks away here on November 2nd. It opened up in 1912 here in the city of Cleveland. You can kind of get a glimpse of what was happening. These are both pictures from the West Side Market, both inside that market hall, which you saw in that first slide, and some of the permanent kind of displays. And the types of products that were being sold, but also how it spilled over and out onto the sidewalks and the streets in the city of Cleveland. So this market has been owned and operated by the city of Cleveland for the last 110 years. And that is somewhat unique. And John is going to have a great story to tell about what's been happening with Findlay Market in Cincinnati, because we're kind of following their pathway, which I'll talk a little bit more in a couple of minutes. It's located in Cleveland's Ohio City neighborhood. So this is the near west side where Great Lakes Brewing is located. There's a lot of different types of food businesses and restaurants in this district. It's also, I think, seen a lot of major development over the last 15 years or so. I would say that Ohio City is one of Cleveland's, and there's a lot of words for this, renewing neighborhoods, revitalizing neighborhoods, displacing neighborhoods, gentrifying neighborhoods, kind of depending on your perspective. This neighborhood has seen a lot of growth and a lot of new residential market rate development. I've been in Cleveland about 18 years, and it has gone through a massive transformation during that time. And I think that's being reflected in the market as well. And we can talk a little bit more about that. One other thing I wanted to share a little bit about its history. It was one of 3 public markets in Cleveland. We also had the East Side Market and the Central Market. The Central Market was demolished in the early 90s to make way for our arenas and sports stadiums downtown. And then the East Side Market, which is still owned by the city of Cleveland, was converted into a grocery store and health clinic. So it no longer operates as a public market, although it does provide food for the Glenville neighborhood. So this is what the West Side Market looks like today. It is owned and managed still by the city of Cleveland. We are currently in the process with the election of our new mayor, Justin Bibb. One of the campaign promises he made was to transition the West Side Market into independent management. And so there's currently an advisory committee commissioned by the city of Cleveland and the mayor's office that's working on transitioning the management of the market into a third-party operator, most likely a nonprofit organization that would then manage the market on a daily basis. I will say the market is also, you can't tell from this picture, unfortunately, but it's going through I think it's about a $25 million capital renovation right now. If you've been in Cleveland, you may have seen the scaffolding around our infamous clock tower, as well as upgrades inside to the vendor booths inside that market hall, as well as upgrades to electrical and sewer, and some upgrades in the basement storage. What you'll see in front of you too, which I wanted to point out, was you have our kind of main, what I call the market hall building here. And then wrapping around it is what we call the produce arcade. So that's where all of our produce vendors for the West Side Market are located. Our West Side Market is open 5 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and mostly, for the most part, between 8 and 5. There's little variations on that, particularly on Sunday, but it's not open 7 days a week, but it is open 5 days a week. And as I mentioned before, it's located in a neighborhood that's changing quite rapidly. So just to give you a snapshot of kind of what our vendor mix looks like. So inside the market hall, which is where those permanent booths are that have display cases, refrigeration, we have 48 vendors currently inside the market hall. They have a variety, just an amazing array of products, bakery, a lot of different types of meat, sausage makers. We've got dairy, cheese makers, specialty foods, value-added products. There's an anchored Mediterranean product store on one side of the market, and on the opposite side, there's actually a cafe that's open 7 days a week. One of the things that is a little bit different about the West Side Market is we have fairly limited ready-to-eat foods. There's a couple booths and vendors that offer ready-to-eat, but we're pretty limited right now due to infrastructure. There's not a lot of hoods, exhaust in this 110-year-old public market. So it really is a grocery-based market where you've got the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, the produce seller. So it's very grocery heavy in the West Side Market. And then on the outside, we've got our produce arcade, and we've got about 18 vendors out in the arcade. It is predominantly produce. There's 2 other vendors. One sells honey and maple syrup that's produced locally that they produce. And then there's another that offers dehydrated fruits and vegetables. But for the most part, these are 18 independent businesses selling fresh produce. And this produce comes from local, national, international. You can find like tons of different types of tropical fruits. You can find Ohio leaf lettuce and sweet corn and peppers in season. The one thing that is different, none of these folks in the produce arcade are producers themselves, with the exception of our maple syrup and honey vendor, but everyone else is buying product either directly from farms or through our produce terminal. As part of its transition plan, the West Side Market Advisory Team just completed a new customer survey. This was an intercept survey done at the market in September. And so I just wanted to share some of that information with you so you get a sense of who these customers are. So West Side Market seats about 1.2 million visitors every year, and about 20% of those live in the zip code right around the market. So from that immediate neighborhood. And then most folks, almost half or closer to half, are within a 15-minute transportation from the market. That could be by bus, by car, by walking, but they're pretty close to the market itself. Most customers are spending about $60 per visit at the market. 10 of that is on ready-to-eat foods, and then $50 of that is spent on groceries. A third of the customers have visited in the past week, and then another 20% have visited in the past month. So there's at least probably about half that are there at least every month shopping at the West Side Market. And then we found that most shoppers purchase from about 3 or 4 vendors while they're at the market. This picture that you see here is inside the produce arcade, just to give you a sense of what that looks like. And I'll talk a little bit more about our Day Style pilot program, of which this is from in just a few moments. So I think one of the things that we were looking at in terms of our engagement with community and with the vendors and with the market last year was how to think about some of these vacancies that are currently at the market. In the produce arcade, there's 18 vendors, but there are 40 vacant spaces currently in the produce arcade that don't have vendors in them. And so one of the things that we wanted to look at the market was how could we leverage those spaces to get new entrepreneurs into the mix at the market. I would say that one of the things that our market struggles with is having a vendor base that reflects our city population and our community. It's a predominantly white vendor base at the West Side Market. And there is tremendous opportunity to get all sorts of new products and vendor into this market. And we see that Produce Arcade is a really easy way to get into the market. It's a very simple wooden stand. People can kind of set up their products. And so what we did last year was we did a day stall pilot program where we took a group of those different stalls and then invited entrepreneurs to come in for the weekend, almost more like a pop-up farmers market that had a constantly rotating group of vendors. And we reached out to a lot of the different communities that were not represented at the market itself, that we heard customers really wanted to see different types of products, different types of ethnic foods, different types of produce, different types of value-added products, and ran that program for 1 month, really just to look at the potential. And I think the response from both the entrepreneurs, the market customers, and the other vendors was overwhelmingly positive. I think we had a lot of vegan bakers in there. We also had a lot of local produce. This is the Garden Boys, which grows their produce about 15 minutes from the West Side Market. We also had more ready-to-eat foods that could be made outside, tacos, breakfast sandwiches. So it really gave us a chance to bring in some products that a lot of other folks hadn't seen at the market but wanted to purchase. The other thing we found through our pilot program was there was a lot of, Cleveland has a pretty strong entrepreneurship small business support network, and a lot of those partners were really excited to have spaces that they could send their food entrepreneurs to test their product. When I think about a Saturday at the West Side Market, we've got about 18,000 customers coming through the market on any given Saturday. The exposure for a startup entrepreneur, even just to get feedback on their product while they're there, was so invaluable to them. I think the other really cool thing that we saw in our pilot program was the connections between these temporary day stall businesses buying from the produce vendors in the market, their kind of core ingredients. So making connections around distribution and wholesaling so they could get the products that they needed to put the products that they wanted to make onto the market. And so what the city of Cleveland did as a result of that pilot program, because one of the barriers has been the leasing structure. You used to have to sign up for an entire year to sell at the West Side Market, which makes those vacancies a little bit more difficult to fill. So now we're rethinking, what could that leasing structure look like? How could we have more short-term leasing? How do we structure that fee structure? So the city right now has been working in this new administration on figuring out how to create some opportunities to fill those vacancies that also diversify our product mix as well as the vendors that are represented there. One of the last things that I wanted to share was another pilot program that we've been able to do with the city of Cleveland at the West Side Market this year. We had a couple really key core partners, one of which is on this call, I think, with us. Amanda Osborne at OSU Extension, Produce Perks Midwest, the city of Cleveland, us, and then we had a programmatic partner with the food bank. And so the West Side Market has not done a nutrition incentive program before. And so we wanted to pilot that with the TANF fresh fruit and vegetable coupon program as a way to kind of test it out and see what the vendor and customer response was. Our pilot program ran from May 14th to June 30th of this year. And we had 15 of our 16 fresh produce vendors participate. And up here in the Northeast Ohio media climate, if there's something about the West Side Market, it's like all the media loves to report on it. We were a little overwhelmed by the amount of attention that this pilot program got. So we were able to get through some efforts from Amanda at OSU Extension, able to get a supplemental grant from Mount Sinai. That's kind of our backup. So we ended up distributing, I think it was around $35,000 worth of coupons. About 95% of those were redeemed during that 6-week window. This is the team here, our volunteer community team through FAIR that really did a lot of the screening at the market. And then we added cooking demonstrations and music. And it really was, I think, a tremendous pilot. We learned a lot about the potential for this program. The vendors loved the program. We kind of figured out how to do a lot of the reimbursement and the marketing. We had stuff available in multiple languages and trilingual staff at the market to do the screening. But we really just tried to create a really festive, exciting, kind of fun atmosphere at the market. And the vendors have shared that they've gotten a lot of new shoppers, regular shoppers out of this program. And then kind of last but not least, I think one of the other things that we've been experimenting with at the West Side Market is really around events and programming. And how do we activate this community space in different ways by inviting all sorts of different types of artisans, chefs, music, to really create a welcoming, inclusive atmosphere at this market, and really telling people that this is a market for everybody. And I think that really takes, as I'm sure John will share, because we had a really great conversation leading up to this conference, it really takes some intentionality on who you engage when you're doing events and programming. So I know we're going to get into some good questions, but I think there's tremendous potential for the West Side Market to do all sorts of amazing things as a public market in the city of Cleveland. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Morgan. That's great. All right, John Bird from Findlay Market here in Cincinnati. You ready to go?
Absolutely.
Wonderful.
Let me get my sharing up here. Uh-oh.
If you need me to...
Maybe if you can just pull it up so I don't waste any more time.
No, you're good. I've got the PDF version, so this is maybe a little bit less than ideal, but we can make it work. All right.
That's
right?
Yep.
Okay.
Wonderful. Thank you. So real quick, I'm John Bird. I work for the Corporation for Findlay Market, managing Findlay Market. I'm the Director of Market Management and Operations. So I sort of manage all of our day-to-day operations, our vendor management, capital projects and improvements, outdoor market things, nutrition incentives, a pretty good breadth of things sort of operationally at the market. And Anna, if you want to move on to the next one, we'll get into a very brief two-sentence history of 170 years of Findlay Market history. So Findlay Market is Ohio's oldest surviving municipal market house. So I had to bring that one to the Ohio convention here. So it was originally built as an open-sided pavilion, erected in 1852, but disputes with contractors and difficulties correcting problems with the new construction methods delayed its opening until 1855. Although not all that key to our history, I thought it's a nice anecdote that we all get to still deal with 170 years later. So now we'll fast forward very quickly to the early 2000s, where the market we know today was sort of renovated. Going into the late 90s and early 2000s, the market was pretty empty of the main market house. Storefronts around it were kind of all boarded up. And luckily, there was a group that really got behind it and pushed the city to put some effort and money into this amazing asset of the city. So in the early 2000s, the plan was made. And from 2002 to 2003, the market house was renovated by the city. And they did that in sort of two phases. And they owned some of the storefronts on the market square. They moved half the market into those storefronts, renovated the side, and kind of flipped and did the other side. And around that time, too, the Corporation for Findlay Market was created to manage the property and the market for the city throughout the future. On the next slide, we'll quickly fast forward to sort of the market today. Findlay Market welcomes about 1.2 visitors annually to a very dynamic part of Over the Rhine neighborhood that is more recently undergoing vast transformation. If you're familiar with Cincinnati, Over the Rhine is a historic neighborhood that's gone over a lot of change in the last 20 years, really. If you're also familiar, you know that sometime in our history, one of those beautiful like 5-lane roads was built directly through the neighborhood, kind of splitting it, and that's Liberty Street. So we kind of in Over the Rhine refer to south of Liberty or north of Liberty. Findlay Market being placed north of Liberty. So the development has not been coming on, or has not come on as strong until more recently. So currently there's 2 construction projects going on Market Square proper. We have a structured parking garage being built about a block away that was in conjunction with our new professional soccer stadium that was built. If I didn't have my background up, there's 2 buildings directly behind me. One's got new windows and one's waiting on them. So there's definitely a lot going on in the neighborhood, and it's great, and the density is going to be wonderful for market. But as we talk through some of the questions and some of the more content, we'll get into how important that is to protect Findlay Market. So today, Findlay Market is made up of 29 full-time vendors in the main market house, which is what you see here in this picture. And then we have 7 full-time vendors that are in storefronts along sort of these buildings you see on the side that are city-owned property that we manage. Of those 36 full-time merchants in our property that we manage, only 2 of them are non-food related retail, one being a florist, the other being a natural body product vendor. The other ones are split up of, it sounds like we have a little bit higher mix of prepared food than up in Cleveland, but we do push very strong to keep that being the lower percentage. So the majority of our full-time vendors are produce butchers, bakers, cheesemongers, fishmongers, pasta makers, and that fresh food that we think is key to being a public market. Outside of that, as we are in this growing market district that's wonderful for us, we engage with about 25 other businesses around the market as CAM members, which are common area maintenance. So we have agreements with them where we provide services of sort of being part of the Findlay Market sort of family and district footprint, and in our marketing and collateral and our maps and our website, but then getting into a little bit more sort of tangible things of street cleaning that we do for them, handling their trash services, their pest control services, being a part of our work order system. It's a great ecosystem, and that so many people are now wanting to be a part of Findlay Market, and how they can engage and be a part of that, and sort of keep a very cohesive feel around the district. And then on top of that, we have over 65 outdoor market vendors, consisting of, we have a farm shed that we keep for all of our farmers and growers and producers that come in on the weekends. And then we also do have prepared food within that group that comes out, cottage foods, packaged foods, and then some more craft and artisan materials, all the way to, we have a vendor who does sort of like a resale, if you will, of like used outdoor gear. So it's a really interesting mix of things that I think is very fun, and those merchants predominantly come down and set up on the weekend. So that's a little bit of where we are today. And if you jump to the next one, please, and thank you, we'll get into a lot of the programming that we do at Findlay Market. Obviously, this is kind of scratches the surface of what we do, and probably misses a lot of our just day-to-day operations efforts and all the things that we're doing constantly. But just to kind of to introduce the breadth of things, and I think kind of touches on some of the topics we'll talk throughout the rest of the questions, and what a modern public market is and can be, and can shape the future of. But we have a pretty big, we have a whole department within our organization of food innovation. And that kind of started with Findlay Kitchen, which is an incubation kitchen that we have. It is a half block south of Market. It has a huge focus on supporting local small food businesses with women and BIPOC ownership. There's 85 members in there. It takes about 85 seconds when one leaves for that spot to be filled with another one. So it's an amazing program that allows you to rent kitchen space, rent storage space, dip your toe in before you go all the way in on renting a space. So everybody in there is food related. There's a heavy on catering and a lot more packaged business coming in. So it's really interesting to see how the kitchen adapts their programming to support the businesses that are coming in. And quickly after Findlay Kitchen was born, we realized that a storefront accelerator would be a great next step. So in came Findlay Launch, which is a storefront accelerator program for small business owners to grow and scale their business. So we have 2 storefronts. One is set up for a quick casual type service, and the other is more of a food retail storefront. And the idea is you apply for those. If you get accepted in, you go through about 8 weeks of programming where the team partners with other local entrepreneurs, because you're going to come in because you make some of the best empanadas that we've ever seen, and you know how to do that, but you need help with payroll and human resources and access to capital and all those other things that go into running a restaurant that sometimes as cooks people may not learn. So once you go through that, you move into the storefront, you're able to open your business, and it allows you to either fail fast and without a huge financial burden on yourself, or it allows you to sort of work through the issues of operations and succeed. And then we'll assist you finding that storefront of your own to move into when you leave the program. And then through that, there's all this great curriculum. And there's all these tough barriers for entrepreneurs to take those next steps. So we realized that there was some great content coming out of here. So we started Findlay Learn, which is a food business education program where we do weekly, monthly classes. Some are a one-off introduction to co-packaging. Others are an 8-week course that's very similar to the beginning of Findlay Launch. We also have a shopping app that was launched in 2020 during the pandemic. So it's a CFFM managed shopping app comprised only of Findlay Market vendors, offering pickup and delivery 4 days a week. So it's quite a beast, but it's an amazing thing. And it allows sort of the data shows that for a lot of people, it's not replacing market visits, but supplementing. So people who would usually maybe only come once a month are now able to get a delivery every other 2 weeks and then still come for their visit. So it's a pretty awesome program that we run. And then we also have what's called Findlay Culinary Training. So it's a job training program for food industry workers consisting of classroom training, education, on-the-job training in a CFFM managed restaurant, and then employment placement. So it's a partnership. Our restaurant is called Mighty Good. It's a meat and 3. So you do 12 weeks of CFFM is the corporation for Findlay Market. I'm sorry, I meant to point that out when I was talking about when the nonprofit was started, so that when you saw CFFM, you knew a little bit about what I meant. So Mighty Good is that restaurant that we manage. So you go, basically individuals go to this job training program, and they go through about a 12-week crash course of culinary school and more soft skills training. And then you move in and do basically a stage sort of program while being paid in the restaurant. And once you meet the sort of core competencies, we help you find placement in the food industry. So pretty awesome thing, especially as there is definitely a need still in the industry for employment. And I think I have one more slides of just a couple more things that we do. Obviously, nutrition incentives program are a huge piece of what we do, offering SNAP Plus, Produce Perks, EBT, Produce RX, Seniors Farmers Market, and then TANF programs as well. I have this picture here of our education center, where we run it through our education center, which just to this side of it is our farmer's shed, where all of our producers are on the weekend. And to the right, you lead into the market, where the market center is found at the center of market. So on weekends, we're out here in the education center, and that's where we run these programs through. And I'm really just calling it out because specifically the individual in this picture, Tori, I have to brag on every time I can, because she's just such a champion of these programs and cares so much about the community and people coming here. And just works her butt off to make sure that people know about this and to help get this into their hands. And she's just a great steward of the programs and a great assistance to the community. We also run a lot of events and promotions. So we plan and execute over a dozen events each year to sort of celebrate community and highlight amazing offerings. Something we've done is we started doing tasting events, because something that we've learned is that a lot of people, when they do come to market, they go to their spots, they go to their butcher, and they go to their produce person, and kind of the ones that they've built that relationship. So we've done these tasting events where you buy a ticket, and the different participating merchants, it kind of drives you to go try something new, and branch out from your regular route around market. And it's been really successful and fun. And then there's just sort of other events and promotions. If you're in the Cincinnati area, you've maybe heard that there's a little thing called Blink going on this weekend that we're all a little busy with. So those sort of things too. We sort of try to collaborate with the city on these big things, and figure out how Findlay Market can be a great resource for that, and kind of help put ourselves and our merchants on a pedestal, and help drive some business too. We have some strong sustainability initiatives at market. We do on-site vendor composting. Just last year, we launched a community composting program for residential members. So we have about 50 to 55 members at any given time who are composting at home, bringing their compost here. We're processing it, and we're going through the process of some of it. We currently use all on site, but we'll be going down the process of getting licensing to start selling that to sort of help fund the program. We also do all the on-site waste management. So for the market house and the entire market district of those CAM members, we do all the trash sort of management and removal for them, which allows us to sort of sort through and get recycling where it needs to go, true trash where it needs to go, cardboard where it needs to go, and even that composting. And it's a beast, but it's really awesome to be able to do. And then we also run some bar programming at Findlay Market. So we actually have 2 outdoor bars, Jane's and Ray Street Station, that we manage. It's really just to be additive to market, to enhance the market experience. Maybe you're not doing much grocery shopping, but you may come to see a band and a drink and realize this is a place you need to come more. So sort of introducing new faces to the market. And that's sort of the very dime tour of kind of who we are and what we do at Findlay. Thank you, Anna, for helping me out with that.
For sure. Thank you for that presentation from both of you. That was really inspiring, and I learned some things today as well about programs and initiatives that each market is doing. So I think we can start by opening up to questions. And I don't know if we've had any so far, just a couple of comments maybe. So if you have any questions for either or both presenters, definitely either unmute yourself or you can drop it in the chat. And I can maybe get us started while folks are kind of collecting their thoughts, but
Hi, Anna.
yeah.
And thank you both, John and Morgan, for sharing your organizations, what you're doing. I'm sitting in for our director, who is with Stark Fresh in Canton, Ohio, and we have a very small, but we're expanding to, I guess, another couple. I'm very new with the organization, so I know we have a mobile grocery, and we have a downtown kind of like a tienda. It's a full grocery situation, so we're not nearly the scope of what John and Morgan are doing. I'm very familiar with the Columbus North Market, and even there was another facility called the Continent that used to have a lot of this kind of open courtyard marketplace feel to it. So I don't know that I have any real intelligent questions that I could try to get, for Tom, because he is so much more learned than I am. But I really like, John, what you were talking about. Part of what we're doing is an incubator and entrepreneurship and getting more people, involved in that way. So we were just kicking around something from National Restaurant Association through their Education Foundation to maybe enhance what we're doing. And so can you maybe explain more about how the job skills and entrepreneur incubator programs are going for you, and how you maybe get word out about those? We have a small business development boot camp that we offer, and you know, we have the commercial kitchen space that's available to the public along with our marketplace.
Yeah, so I'll kind of start on the incubator side. I think it's been open. It just celebrated its sixth year of being open just this year, and I think that I have only been on the team for about 2 years, but it pretty much took very little marketing to fill the kitchen when it did start. The reality is that the barriers of starting a food business are just so high for anyone, let alone the specific populations we're trying to target and help. And it is tenfold harder if you are a woman or BIPOC entrepreneur. It's just the reality, unfortunately. So to be honest, it's kind of sad, but it didn't take a lot of marketing to fill that up. The launch spaces were new. They actually went under construction, and we're planning to be opening in 2020. So that did take a pause. And honestly, a lot of it came from just kind of word of mouth marketing. Obviously, we had 85 members in the kitchen. Not all of those businesses are geared towards opening a storefront. Some of those are a kombucha producer who's really not looking to have a retail presence, things like that. But we kind of already had a big built-in population that we were already looking to kind of assist and move into those opportunities. So that really helped. But it's honestly been very sort of grassroots marketing around the market. It helps that we're a great place that food businesses come to start and want to start already, just because that's kind of part of our mission within the market, is lowering barriers for people. So there's generally a lot of interested folks in the area already. On the sort of job training side, we have a great partner with CityLink in Cincinnati, who does a lot of job training outreach. It's a lot of folks that have a maybe a little bit more history. They're kind of on their second act, trying to turn things around. So we're really lucky that we actually have them as the partner there. We do share the chef instructor that does the training as a part of our organization, but we're definitely very lucky that they're able to do the outreach on the side of finding those individuals. But I can tell you that's a really tough program to run, because we're supporting this group of 12 cohorts every 3 months of new people with new challenges. The economics of a restaurant are already quite rough as it is. You're destined to fail from the get-go in some ways. So trying to operate a restaurant where you're paying twice as much staff as you essentially need to run the restaurant to be able to execute the things but still do the education. Those make that specific sort of training program really tough. But I can't walk around the district and find a business that isn't in some sort of need for staffing. So it's really, from a mission standpoint, you kind of have to stay headstrong for this program. And to be very blunt, it's an amazing program that's we're able to find funding outside from donors and things like that to kind of help those things going. I don't know how pointedly that might have answered your questions there, but hopefully it was something. And I'll drop my contact in the chat too, if you want to pass it along or reach out for any more communication on that.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. I really appreciate it. I've had the luxury of restaurant ownership, if you will. I've fallen on my chin a few times actually in trying to get, going in that way. So those incubator programs weren't really available to me 15, years ago.
Yeah.
So, so that's where my focus is, well, part of my focus professionally has been teaching, I was teaching the next guy behind me how to do the job all of my career. So I just went into teaching professionally, if you will, stop getting my head beat up in the, retail. But yeah, that it seems like, I don't know. You answered a lot of great questions. Thank you for your time.
Great.
Yeah, it's really interesting to hear about those specific programs. They're unique, I think, and happy to hear about their success. We have a question in the chat from Morgan, from Rachel. Can you talk about what impact the transition of the market from city ownership to nonprofit ownership could have? Do you see it as a positive move?
All right, let me see who's in this Zoom room before. No, I'm just kidding. I'm 100% honest, and this is being recorded. I think this is a really great question, Rachel. It's one I have wrestled with many nights, many days. I think for the West Side market, the city has not made the investments in the market that it's needed to. And from a capital perspective, in terms of improvements, the power outages here, there's no backup generators, the sewers back up, the building's falling apart. There are major capital expenses that they are making an investment in right now, but the city deferred for a long time. We also only have 5 full-time staff to manage that market. When we looked at other markets through our process, we were looking more at staff between 20 and 30 people on a management team to manage the market. So also from an operations perspective, not getting the resources that it needs. I think that's kept the market in kind of a period of stasis, right? It's just kind of been holding on, traditional, this is what we do. And I think that's affected the culture of the market, who is welcome at the market in terms of customers, in terms of vendors, and that really deep history. I think as the market transitions to a nonprofit, I think to me, it really depends on who's at the table making those decisions and who they think the market is for. And that to me is like the critical question. There is an advisory committee that's been put together to guide the market over the next year into that nonprofit management structure. They're working with a national public markets consultant, Ted Spitzer, to help manage that process in partnership with the city. One of the things that I think in terms of that's happened around the West Side market, it's become very focused as an Ohio City asset, which is that neighborhood. We intentionally took the West Side market conversation to Cleveland's Buckeye neighborhood, which is all the way over on the east side of Cleveland. We took it to Clark Fulton, which is just a mile south of the West Side market, but has no full service grocery store. And their zip code doesn't even show up on the customers who come and shop at the market, despite like 18 vendors with fresh produce in a community that doesn't have that. So there are some real disconnects. I think the wave of new development, market rate development, the money, the new residents with money in Ohio City, to counteract that pressure that the market just doesn't follow that trend, you're going to need to have a table of people who represent the city, the diversity of the city. And I mean that from a cultural, gender, family, economic, race, ethnicity. I think that they can kind of set that, what the future of that market looks like, but it needs to be so intentional. Otherwise, these other forces will take over. Whether that's ready to eat stuff, whether that's the types of vendors that are there, whether that's the customers that feel comfortable shopping there. The West Side market still has its kind of blue collar feel to it. It's a place where people from all walks of life can shop, but I think there has to be some real focus on the vendor base, creating that welcoming and inclusive culture at the market. 96% of those customers that responded to that survey were white. Cleveland is a majority Black city. So we have some fundamental issues, and the way that it's being set up, I think is critical in terms of who this market is for in the future. So while I think there's some real, the city could not run TANF fruit and vegetable coupon programs without us, because that money to flow through the city to reimburse the vendors it could take a year for that money to come back to reimburse those vendors just because of city processes, right? So there's a lot of nimbleness and adaptability that a nonprofit can really add in terms of events and programming and things like nutrition incentives. So I am cautiously optimistic. I would like to see a bigger focus on a really diverse group of Clevelanders charting its future. I don't see that yet, and I would like to see something different. Otherwise, I think it's just what we learned last year. There's tremendous opportunity to support so many different types of entrepreneurs, so many customers coming to that market, and really create that space where all of Cleveland feels welcome and represented. But you have to be focused on that in order for that to happen. It won't happen by itself. So I will remain hopeful, but with also a critical, watchful eye.
Thank
John,
you for that.
Say that again.
I was just going to say thank you for that candid response. I appreciate it. And I think that you touched on, a lot of with the anti-racist farmers market toolkit that FMC has been supporting, gets back to this understanding of like knowing the history of the market, knowing the management of the market, and often I think what we don't talk about with farmers markets or public markets is really the role that they can play in gentrification. It doesn't happen ancillary to the market. The market is part of that piece too. And so thinking about like, how do we rectify some of that? How do we adjust with changing communities while still supporting the gentrified community too? Like, there's a lot of nuance to that situation and a lot of hard work that has to be done. So I appreciate you for doing it.
Yeah, absolutely, Rachel. Yeah, it's a complex being. I think, we talked to vendors who left the market. I wanted to know not just who's there now, but who left and why. Did they not feel that the market, we've had 2 Black vendors at the market and it's 110-year history. And that blew my mind when I learned that. There's a reason why that's happening. Like, I think there's economic barriers like John was talking about in terms of barriers to entry into a food business. But I also think there are fundamental cultural issues that are happening in terms of the city, the market, those relationships, the vendor group. So a lot of those are uncomfortable conversations and people don't necessarily want to dig into them. But I think we're seeing the results of a system. And there are some fundamental problems with the system if this is the results that we currently have. And it's going to take changing some of those things at the ground level in order for us to have a different result. And John, I don't know if you want to weigh in. I know you guys are also really focused on a lot of these issues too down at Findlay Market. But so yeah, I'm inviting you to jump in if you want. Yeah.
Well, I think it's interesting because we're that is our model, is kind of what Cleveland is moving to. And I obviously I was not here prior 20 years ago to it existing, but I think a couple things that it boils down to is that nimbleness that you alluded to, of just kind of get it done for these merchants, because there is no market without these merchants. But I think it's also it's the long-term vision. It's the ability to execute all these other programs and and position yourself for a better future. I think that we still are managing a city asset. We still work with the city, but I think if you're just being managed by the economic development division of a city, which is who we work directly with, to some point you're at the mercy of the changing visions of who is in power within local government. So if the current city leadership thinks food innovation and lowering the barriers for food entrepreneurs is a great thing to be working on, they're going to work on it. But then when that administration changes, they're like, this is not a priority. You're just scratching all that. And I think that probably that long-term vision and sort of strategic planning is a big benefit, I believe.
Great. Very eloquently said, both of you. Okay, I think we're ready to wrap up our session. We have our happy hour networking. It's just a half hour, our happy half hour. We can only be happy for half an hour today at 4 p.m. So Anna just popped that registration link in if you're not registered. Hopefully you're able to join us for a little bit more discussion. I feel like we probably could have talked about this for another 45 minutes or so, so lots to say. We'll make sure to share contact info out. And yeah, thank you so much for joining us. Great presentations, Morgan and John. Thank you.
Thanks for all your great questions. Yeah, this was great. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for having us.